wherever you are. Welcome back to today's session. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Before we begin the session, a couple of questions that were raised. One, I think yesterday on the chat, Sohini ji asked a question which I forgot to respond to. So she asked whether after this there will be classes on Upanishads and other things. I have myself not read Upanishads, so we have to find somebody else to teach us. But it will be good, definitely, to continue, something at some point of time, or take some time off and study Gita a little more deeply, and then definitely Upanishads are a very, very good source for going deeper into philosophy, especially what we call the primary Upanishads: Isha, Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Mandukya, Aitareya, Taittiriya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, and I'm missing one. Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna Upanishad. So these are, and along with this, Shvetashvatara and Mahanarayana and Kaushitaki Brahmana, like this, there are some 3 or 4 minor ones, apart from the 10 major Upanishads. So with this 14 or 15 Upanishads, it will give you a complete picture of the Indian philosophy. And unlike the Gita, which is best studied on its own, the Upanishads, you will definitely benefit from studying the commentary of Shankaracharya, who has written a very, very detailed commentary and a lot of interesting insights. Unfortunately, with the Gita, commentators have made it more difficult than what it is. This is the view of my co-author and me. Dr. Sri Krishna and me often discuss how the Gita itself is very clear, and you read the commentary, then you get confused what's happening. Just a moment ago, it was clear, and now it is confusing. So, with the Gita, we don't need any additional things most of the time. Another was a question from Sridhar ji, and he is asking a question that probably many people among you also will have. So he says there are vratas like Ekadashi and Satyanarayana Puja and Sankalpita Puja, Homa and Havana, all these things, and then there are Nitya Karma, Nitya Kriyas. Now, is meditation more important than all of this? And am I, always I'm wondering whether to do some chanting or to do meditation. I think the answer has been provided in the Gita itself in one of the earlier chapter, where he says, when you compare karma and jnana, when you compare karma yoga and jnana yoga, jnana is harder. I think he explicitly mentions this also in the 12th chapter. So meditation is much harder to do. If you can do meditation, that's well and good. But if you're doing japa or you're doing, like repeating certain shlokas or something, that's also fine. The point is, these are all, based on the individual capacity for concentration and individual interest level. Now, some people may have a great enjoyment in just reciting the shlokas, whereas some other people may not have that enjoyment. For example, many times when we were working on the Bhagavad Gita translation, my co-author, Dr. Sri Krishna, used to tell me, like, just listening to Gita, he just enjoys. Forget about the meaning, forget about anything else. Just reciting the verses, listening to the verses, he has great enjoyment in that. I don't have any great enjoyment listening to the verses. This is my personal thing. I like to know the meaning. I like to see what is relevant in my life. That's my approach because I'm an engineer and I'll break it down into certain components. That's my way of looking at it, and his way is different. So this doesn't mean his is the right way or mine is the right way. Or both of them are suitable to us. If I try doing that or he tries doing this, it may not work out perfectly for us. So I think we have to choose what is most suited to us, and that is what is appropriate to us, right? So if we are going to a tailor and he's taking our measurements and he's stitching a suit exactly to our measurement, that is the one which is right for us. Whereas if you look at somebody else and say, hey, look at that guy, he's got a bigger suit than me, that's because his bodily structure is different from mine. So therefore, I think if you are confused about japa and meditation, you have to take a path that is more suited to your nature. If you are able to concentrate more uh, for a longer duration doing this japa, then maybe that is for you. If you're getting easily distracted by doing japa, but you're able to sustain concentration when you're doing meditation, maybe that is for you. So we have to see what works best for us. Uh, there is no like this is better path or that is better path when it comes to the sadhana aspect of it. It is about what is suited to you. Of course, there is some sort of hierarchy in terms of after a particular point of time, you want to graduate to another state. For example, like just merely reciting verses of Bhagavad Gita is one state, but you want to graduate to the point where you know the meaning, where you're trying to implement the meaning in your life. That doesn't mean you stop reciting. You can continue to recite if that gives you the focus and concentration. But at the same time, one need not let go of the other possibilities. Keep the main focus as what is aligned to you, and try to also push yourself. So maybe let's say meditation is difficult initially, then maybe japa will be a good idea, and slowly do a little bit of meditation, come back to japa. But when it comes to sadhana, like I said, there is no hierarchy really. It's about what works for you. So I hope I have answered your question. Um, Yesterday we were at an interesting point in the Gita where we were looking at the concept of time and the timelines and all the different. So he says all the different lokas up to Brahma Loka have a return. Now I thought it would be good to share with you a quick this thing on the timeline. So there is a nice slide that Dr. Sri Krishna has prepared, which he uses for his presentations, and he has been very kind to share that with me. So I'm just going to show you that. Okay, can you see this now? Yeah, okay. So the Hindu time scale or the Yuga cycle is it's a pretty daunting task. It is spread over a huge period of time. It spans trillions of years. Again, now one should not take this as a literal, you know, period of whatever 4.3 billion years. It's a concept that the Satya Yuga or the Krita Yuga, where things were very good and people were noble and dharma stood on all the 4 feet, and it was a very good time. And whatever period is allotted for Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, half of that is no is in the ratio of 4:3:2:1. So if this is for 4x, then 3x is Treta Yuga, where little less dharma and little problems have started creeping in. Then further 2x is Dwapara Yuga, and X is Kali Yuga. So Dwapara Yuga is where dharma is standing on 2 legs. There's more deterioration, which is the time of the Kurukshetra war. And then Kali Yuga starts in 3102 BCE, and that's for 43.2 million years. No, yeah. So if you add all this up, so 4.32 million years, or it's 100, so 43 million years. Anyway, I'm confused. So the cycle is the 4.32 billion years. When you add up all the, so one yuga is 4.32 million years, correct? Okay. So the basic conception is that, he says 51st year, 21 years younger to me. That's not me, that's my uncle, Dr. Sri Krishna. So I'm using his slide. So Brahma is said to be in his 51st year. And like once Brahma's period of 100 years is over, then he dies and another Brahma is born. So that's the conception, right? The basic idea is like this. We have 12 months in a year. The 12 months in a year are divided into two halves. Uttarayana, which is the apparent northern movement of the sun, where right now we are in Uttarayana, and Dakshinayana is the apparent southern movement of the sun. It's 6 months of the year, second half of the year. So the Uttarayana is considered as one day for the Devas, and the Dakshinayana is considered as one night for the Devas. So 1 day plus one night of the Devas, 1 year of the human year equals to 1 day of the Devas. Now, 360 days and nights of Devas make something called as a divine year or a Deva year, if you want to call it. So, just like in the conception of 360 days make a year roughly. So, 360 days of a human thing make 1 day and night for Deva. 360 days and nights of Devas make one Deva Samvatsara, or one divine year. Now, 12,000 divine years make one Mahayuga. Okay? And a day of Brahma spans 1,000 Mahayugas. So, a Mahayuga is 12,000 divine years, and 1,000 Mahayugas is 1 day of Brahma. Then 1,000 Mahayugas is one night of Brahma. And Brahma's lifespan is 100 years. That is called as a kalpa or a cosmic cycle. So after that, there is a dissolution and fresh creation. So you can see that this very, very staggering timeline spread over trillions of years. Again, like I said, it should be taken more metaphorically rather than literally, because it is just an understanding of the past. In that, there's the most important thing is the understanding that it's a cyclical idea, right? I told you that time is considered cyclical. So all these things, starting from humans all the way up to Brahma, has a birth, has a death, and again is born to continue this cycle. So this is the conception. When we understand this conception and understand the metaphor, we can realize that things are not, this is not the end of everything. There is always another opportunity. It will, the time will come again and so forth. But if we take it literally, then we are, getting into trouble, because we don't, when we take something in the, I told you, right, in the level of adhibhuta, which is the physical level, the material level, when you take things literally, one needs to have material evidence. Now, there is material evidence for, when you look at the fossils, dinosaur fossils, we know that they flourished some 300 million years ago or whatever. When we look at some of the artifacts and we look at the history of the earth, we know that the earth is some so many billion years ago. The universe itself is some whatever 14 billion years ago. So based on evidence, we are trying to recreate the past. That's a scientific way. So if you say, oh, this is Krita Yuga and this is spanning so many millions of years, and you don't have any evidence for it, then it will not be taken seriously. So you should understand that it is a conception spanning. The idea is that time is very, very vast. And if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is living 2,000, 3,000 years back, they would have been so amazed by space and time. Their knowledge was limited based on observation. And when they observe, and then from what they see, they're extrapolating, they're imagining the possibilities. So it's a stage of evolution in the ideas. So we should look at it from that point of view. So this is just a quick overview of the idea of time in the Hindu tradition. Okay, let's go to. Okay, we were here, right? We finished this. A Brahma Bhuvanat Lokaha Punaravrittinorjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punarjanmana Vidyate. So he said, all the lokas up to that of Brahma, Lord Brahma, are having some point of return. But when you reach Brahman, it's a point of no return. You're always there. Then he says, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Maharyat Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Janaha. Sorry, I forgot to open the other document. So basically, that for thousands of yugas is spanned. A day of Brahma spans thousands of yugas, and a night of Brahma also spans 1,000 yugas. So Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, to the extent that for a period of 1,000 years, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, Yat Brahmanaha Ahaha Viduhu. So one who knows that the day of Brahma, Aha is day and Nishi is night. Aho Ratra, we say. Ahaha and Ratra. So Aha Viduhu. One who knows that day of Brahma spans a Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, a period of 1,000 yugas, is a day of Brahma. Yuga Sahasrantam Ratrim Viduhu. So similarly, a night of Brahma spans 1,000 yugas. Te janaha ahoratra vidaha. They are the people who know the true meaning or the cosmic meaning of day and night. There's also another advantage of having this kind of a metaphor, a kind of vision, is that we realize that our lives on earth are very inconsequential. We should not take ourselves too seriously. Many times when we were young, I used to go to the planetarium, and when we see the vision of the cosmos in a small thing, and you look at the vastness of space, and here you see the vastness of time, one naturally comes out with a sense of wonder, with a sense of humility, with a sense of gratitude for what is available to us. So the idea is, through these metaphors, through these ideas, we are trying to expand our mind, trying to understand things in a broader perspective. So when we see that this is the large time scale, and then in this backdrop, I say, can you wait for 5 minutes? Then 5 minutes seems just nothing. You don't mind. Whereas if you are thinking that 5 minutes is everything, then obviously your agitation is going to be more. Now, of course, the value of time, there is a very old thing, right? If you want to know the value of 1 second, you ask somebody who's lost an Olympic race, and you want to know the value of 1 month, you ask a woman who's given birth to a premature baby, and so on, right? There is this famous thing. You want to know the value of 1 year, ask a student who has failed a class, and so forth. But it's not that every moment is not valuable, but when we look at the staggering timeline, we naturally tend to get a sense of wonder and mystery and humility and awe and all these things together. So, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Yat Brahmanaha Ahaha Viduhu Sahasra Yuga Sahasrantam Ratrim Viduhu Te Janaha Ahoratra Vidaha. So, they truly know the cosmic meaning of day and night when they know a day of Brahma and a night of Brahma both span 1,000 yugas. So, Hamsa, will you repeat? Sahasra Yuga Paryantam.
Sahasra Yuga Paryantam.
Aharyat Brahmano Viduhu.
Aharyat Brahmano Viduhu.
Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam.
रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्तां
देहोरात्रविदो जनाः.
देहोरात्रविदो जनाः.
Thank you. Then avyaktaad vyaktayah sarvaah prabhavantyaharaagame ratriagame praliyante tatraiva vyakta samyake. Tatra evakta samyak. So when the day of Brahma begins, all the forms emerge from the hidden state, and when the night of Brahma begins, all forms disappear from the visible state. So ahar agame, when the day begins, at the start of the day, avyaktat sarvaah vyaktayah prabhavanti. So what is unmanifest, what is avyakta, what is unseen, they all that sarvaha, they become prabhavanti, vyaktayah, they become manifest, they become seen, they become visible. Ratri agame, when the night of Brahma begins, avyakta sanyake, the what is visible, what is manifest, tatra eva praliyante, they disappear, they dissolve, um, they undergo dissolution, they are completely wiped out. Now ahar and ratriya, they are not mentioned, it is Brahma, but from the context we understand it is the day of Brahma. Avyaktaad vyaktayah sarvaah
अव्यक्ताद् व्यक्तयः सर्वाः
prabhavantyaharaagame
प्रभवन्त्यहरागमे
रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते
रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते
तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके.
तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके.
Then he says, Bhutagramah sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriagame vashah partha prabhavatyaharaagame. So, indeed, the countless beings that come into existence again and again are inevitably dissolved at the arrival of night. Then they come forth again at the arrival of day. So, Partha, Saha eva ayam bhutagramaha. Saha, he, eva ayam, this, indeed, this bhutagramaha, this collection of beings. Avashaha bhutva bhutva ratriagame praliyate. So they come into existence again and again. That at the beginning of night they all get dissolved. Aharagame prabhavati. Again, at the next day they again come forth. So this process goes on throughout the life of Brahma. At the beginning of Brahma's day, which spans 1,000 Mahayugas, and each Mahayuga is 12,000 divine years, and each divine year is 360 human years, right? So that's the period of time. So this entire period is one kalpa. This is the day of Brahma. So the morning of Brahma, all the beings are formed, one entire cosmic cycle is over. Then again, everything gets dissolved. And like this, for 100 years it goes on. And then after that, Brahma also dies and is born again. So it is an eternal cycle of endless cycle of time. Bhutagrama sa evayam
भूतग्राम स एवायम्
bhutva bhutva praliyate
भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते
ratriagame vashah partha
रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ
prabhavatyaharaagame.
प्रभवत्यहरागमे.
Then he says, Parastasmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha. Avyakto avyaktat sanatanaha. Yahasa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsuna na vinashyati. So, however, higher than this, there is a formless eternal state of being that remains untouched by cosmic cycles. Tasmat, then, avyaktat paraha, greater than the unmanifest, there's no avyaktat paraha yaha anyah avyaktah bhavaha to sanatanaha. So greater than this, there is anyaha, other than this, avyaktah bhavaha, something which is formless, and sanatanaha, eternal. Saha sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. Even though all the beings are dissolved and destroyed, annihilated, this doesn't get annihilated. So it remains untouched by the cosmic cycles. Higher than this is the state of Brahman. So this cosmic cycle, which is 8.64 billion years, so 4.32 billion years is day of Brahma, 4.32 billion years is night of Brahma. So this entire cosmic cycle, which is a day and night of Brahma, 8.64 billion years, it keeps going on, but this eternal state or state of Brahman is always there. It does not get destroyed when all the beings perish. So it is indestructible and formless, eternal. So parastasmat tu bhavonyah
परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यः
avyakto vyaktat sanatanah
अव्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः
yaha sa sarveshu bhuteshu
यः स सर्वेषु भूतेषु
nashyatsu na vinashyati.
नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति.
Then he says, Avyaktokshara ityuktaha tam ahuhu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. So, what is spoken of as the unseen and the indestructible is considered the highest state. Those who reach it stay on forever because that is the supreme domain. Avyaktaha aksharaha iti uktaha. So it is said, iti uktaha, it is said, it is called avyakta and akshara. Avyakta means it is unseen, formless, and aksharaha means it is indestructible. This tam paramam gatim ahuhu. Ahuhu, it is said, that is known as the highest state. Paramam gatim, the highest state, the highest place you can be. It is the highest position. Yam prapya, one who has attained this, na nivartante, they don't return. Tat mama paramam dhamaha. That is the supreme domain. That is my place. That is my domain, abode, and it's a supreme place. So people who reach the highest state, they don't return. Whereas any other loka they reach, whether they reach Devaloka, Pitraloka, Brahmaloka, they will return. But when they attain the highest domain, they don't return. They are always there. It is going to a point which is timeless and spaceless. So there is no question of coming back into the time cycle. Avyaktokshara iti ityuktaha
अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः
tam ahuhu paramam gatim
तम् आहुः परमां गतिं
yam prapya na nivartante
यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते
tad dhama paramam mama.
तद्धाम परमं मम.
Purushaha sa parah partha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantah sthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. Purusha is the supreme spirit that pervades the entire universe and in whom all beings reside. And one can attain this state of Purusha by wholehearted devotion, by sincerity. Partha, again addressed to Arjuna, Bhutani yasya antasthani. So Bhutani, among the beings, of all the beings, yasya, of that, antasthani yena idam sarvatatam. So among the beings, so Bhutani, all the beings, yasya antasthani, all the beings in whom they reside, their final refuge is in whom, yena idam sarvam tatam, by whom all this universe is pervaded, saha, in that indeed, to paraha purushaha ananyaya bhaktya labhyaha. So saha, that purusha, which is the Supreme Spirit that pervades the entire universe and in whom all beings abide, to attain that Purusha Ananyaya Bhaktya. So, a kind of unmatched, Ananyaya Bhaktya, by unmatched devotion, by intense, sincere, wholehearted devotion, Labhyaha. It is, you can attain that state. So again, basically, it is the highest state, and to attain that, one needs to have a lot of focus and concentration. Make that as the focus of our deliberation. Only then we can hope to reach that state. So, Purushaha sa parah partha,
पुरुषः स परः पार्थ
bhaktya labhyastvananyaya,
भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया
yasyantasthani bhutani,
यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि
yena sarvamidam tatam.
येन सर्वमिदं ततम्
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभा. When a yogi dies, either he comes back or he stays on forever in that ultimate domain. Let me explain to you. Bharatarshabha, the great bull among the Bharatas, the hero, great hero warrior among the Bharata clan. Yoginaha yatra kale, when the yogis meet their end, when their time comes, to prayataha, when they die and they proceed to the higher thing, avrittim anavrittim. So they either return or they don't return. Avrittim anavrittim cha eva yanti. Tam kalam vakshyami. So that I will explain to you what happens. So either he returns to earth, he's reborn, or he stays on in the supreme domain forever. I will tell you how this works, what happens. So yatra kale tvanavrittim,
यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम्
आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः
आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः
प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं
प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं
वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ.
वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ.
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्ल षण्मासा उत्तरायणं तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्मविदो जनाः. So the yogi who dies during Uttarayana, which is the symbol of dazzling white daylight, goes forth to reach Brahman. So Agnihi is fire, Jyotihi light, Ahaha is day, Shuklaha is the bright fortnight, the period of 15 days of the waxing moon, Uttarayanam Shanmasaha, the 6 months of Uttarayana, the period of the 6 months following winter solstice. These are the symbols. Tatra Prayataha, the one who departs on this stage, goes for Brahma Vidaha Janaha Brahma Gachanti. Those who have got the awareness of Brahman, when they die during this period of time, they go forth to reach the Brahman. So this verse basically refers to the path of brightness. So it invokes the terms like fire, Agni, then light, Jyoti, day, Aha, bright fortnight, Shukla Paksha, Uttarayana, which is the Shanmasa, the 6 months following winter solstice. Now, it's also a brighter period because the days grow longer during Uttarayana, which is the apparent northward movement of the sun. And it is regarded also as the bright half of the year. So bright half of the year, bright fortnight, the daytime, and there is a light and fire. So all these are symbols for brightness. So when the symbol for brightness, when a yogi who is knowledgeable about Brahman, so it is not just any yogi, Brahma Vidah Janaha, the people who are knowledgeable about Brahman, such people, when they die, they attain Brahman. I'll give an explanation for this little later, but just let's understand these. And there's another verse along with this. So, Agnir Jyoti Raha Shuklaha,
अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः
Shanmasa Uttarayanam,
षण्मासा उत्तरायणम्
Tatra Prayata Gachanti,
तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति
Brahma Brahmavido Janaha.
ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम तत्र चांद्रमसं ज्योतिर्योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. The yogi who dies during Dakshinayana, symbol of hazy dark night, attains the lunar light and is born again. So Dhumaha, which is smoke, Rat, night, Krishna, the Krishna Paksha, which is the period of the waning moon, the fortnight of the waning moon, Tatha Dakshinayanam, the Shanmasaha, the 6 months of the year following summer solstice. These are the symbols. Tatra Yogi, the one who is a yogi, Chandramasam, Jyotihi Prapya, that yogi who dies at this time attains the lunar light. Prapya Nivartate. He returns, he is reborn. Now, these two verses, let's just recite this also and then I'll explain. Dhumo Ratris Tatha Krishnaha.
धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः
Shanmasa Dakshinayanam.
षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम्
Tatra Chandramasam Jyotihi.
तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः
Yogi Prapya Nivartate.
योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते.
So when you read both the lines together, you will read it as Tatra Chandramasam Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate. When you break it into two, you will say Tatra Chandramasam Jyotihi Yogi Prapya Nivartate. That's just when you break it into 4 lines. So what does this mean? One time, depending on when the yogi dies, he will be reborn or he will go to the supreme domain. Now, this is a metaphorical verse. I don't think it should be taken literally. However, it was taken literally. It is taken literally by the people who have faith in this, in this idea. We see even in the Mahabharata, although the war got over in November itself, Bhishma waits for the onset of Uttarayana to leave his body. He is, if you know the Mahabharata, Bhishma is a character who has got this special power that he can choose the time of his death. So he can choose to die whenever he wants. It's like super power, no? If whenever you want, you can die and without any trouble. Just you choose that you want to die, you die. So Ichha Marani, very great boon all of us wish we had. But anyway, so Bhishma had that power to die whenever he wanted. And until he wanted, he would not get death. So even if he grows old, if he grows whatever it is, he will be alive. So he chooses to die in Uttarayana because then he can go to the supreme domain. This shows us that this belief was there even in that time. Now, does this also, now when we see the 2 verses here, there is the first verse 24 is a symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of brightness, right? We have Agni, Jyoti, Aha, Shukla, and Uttarayana. The second verse is a symbol of darkness, is a symbol of ignorance, is a symbol of haziness and things like that. So Dhumaha, which is smoke, Ratri, night, Krishna Paksha, and the Dakshinayana, which is the dark half of the year. Where the days grow shorter and apparent southward movement of the sun. And therefore, because of this dark, when you see the sun and the brightness, Jyoti, and here the Chandramasam Jyoti, the lunar light, which is kind of an implication of the night for the gods, right? Dakshinayana is night time for the devas, I told you. So therefore, possibly a reference to Chandramasam Jyoti. So here, from the first half of both the verses, we know clearly that there's a symbol of light, a symbol of darkness. But what is the second half of the verses saying? Tatra prayata gachanti Brahma vido janaha. So the people who are attain the highest state, such people attain Brahman. Whereas here it says yogi prapya nivartate. Yogi chandramasam jyotir prapya yogi nivartate. So this one says the yogi comes back. So there is a distinction. Although in the 23rd verse he says, I will tell you there are two paths for a yogi. In the 24th he calls them Brahma Vido Janaha. So the one possibility also is the people who are having knowledge of who have attained Brahman, the state of Brahman, when they die, they attain the highest state, provided they die in the Uttarayana period. Now, when we were translating this, we kind of really racked our brains. We couldn't make any sense of this because this is very, very metaphorical and really not clear at all. One possibility, this is our explanation, which we have put in our book also, and it is a working hypothesis, I would say. I would not go as far as to claim it as the fantastic best interpretation or whatever, but this interpretation makes a lot of sense to us, which is why we have put this. These two verses possibly indicates to us that among all the great people who die, some of them attain the highest state, some of them are reborn so that they can guide the rest of us. Because all the people, great yogis, they are gone and there's nobody left on earth, nobody reborn. Then it becomes difficult. So possibly one explanation is that some of them are remaining back on earth or reborn on earth so that they can guide the other people, helping us to get to this, liberation. But this is kind of for the sake of giving some explanation to the extent that we understand it. If there is any better explanation that any of you have seen, I'll be very happy to see it, because this is a very tricky, complicated set of verses that I have not really. This is a working hypothesis, but I personally am not very convinced really with this. I mean, it doesn't, with all these high, lofty ideas of Gita, this somehow doesn't fit in so well. But maybe there is something else to it, or maybe it is as simple as this. So I don't know. But literal meaning of these two verses are what I have said. That it's a metaphor for light and darkness. A person who dies in this period of light attains the highest state, provided he is a Brahmavid. Whereas a yogi who dies during the dark phase, the symbol of ignorance, is born again. Okay. Shukla Krishne gati hyete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yatyanavrittim anyaya vartate punaha. So indeed, the bright and the dark have always been the two paths in this world. By one, the yogi goes on to stay forever, whereas by the other, the yogi returns again. So the concept is clear. What is the deeper meaning is, well, it's anybody's guess as of what I have seen now. Ete shukla krishne gati jagata shashvate mate. So it is my opinion, mate, that indeed Shukla Krishna, so Shukla Krishna, the bright and the dark, Jagataha, in the world, they are the two eternal, they've always been there. These are the two Gati, these are the two states, these are the two kind of stands that have always been there. Ekaya anavrittim yati, by one path, he does not return. And anyaya punaha avartate, by the other path he returns again. So when the Shukla Marga, the path of the knowledge and brightness, he goes and stays in the supreme domain, the Krishna Marga, which is the path of darkness and ignorance, he goes and he comes back again. So this is basically what the verse says. So Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete
Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete
Jagatah Shashvate Mate
Jagatah Shashvate Mate
Ekaya Yati Anavrittim
Ekaya Yati Anavrittim
Anyaya Vartate Punaha.
Anyaya Vartate Punaha.
He says, Naite Sriti Partha Janan Yogi Muhyati Kaschana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna. So, knowing these two paths, a yogi is never deluded. So, therefore, Arjuna, be established in yoga at all times. Partha, ete sriti janan kaschana yogina muhyati. So, knowing that these are the two paths, he is never deluded. Muhyati, na muhyati. So, ete, these sriti, these two paths, janan, kaschana. So, these are the two paths of, that are available to people. Knowing this, yogi na muhyati, a yogi is never deluded. Arjuna, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Therefore, at all times, yoga yuktaha bhava. So be established in yoga at all times. Now, having realized that even at the after death, it is not very clear on what. So, not like I said, not everybody's ichha marani. We don't know what time people will die, but based on the time of death, the yogi does not know where he is going to go. Because you don't know when you are dying. The moment you die, you are lost awareness, right? So based on that, he goes either to the supreme domain or he returns. So both these possibilities are there. Therefore, the yogi who has cultivated this detachment is not troubled by this. The yogi who has really realized this stage is not bothered by this. He is not deluded. So therefore, be established in yoga that gives you that balance. Okay. So, Naite Sriti Partha Janan.
Naite Sriti Partha Janan.
Sorry, Partha. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, not Janan. I made a mistake. So, here, Ete Sriti Janan, knowing, sorry, my mistake. So, knowing Ete Sriti, these paths, Janan Kaschana Yogi. So, knowing these two paths, Yogi Kaschana na muhyati. Yogi is never deluded, knowing these paths. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah. Naite Sriti Partha Janan.
Naite Sriti Partha Janan.
Yogi Muhyati Kaschana.
Yogi Muhyati Kaschana.
Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu.
Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu.
Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna.
Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna.
So be established in yoga always, realizing that these are the two paths. Okay. Then finally he says, Vedeshu Yajneshu Tapassu Chaiva Daneshu Yat Punya Phalam Pradishtam Atyeti Tat Sarvamidam Viditva Yogi Param Sthanamupaiti Chadyam. So, knowing this truth, a yogi goes beyond all the merits of studying the Vedas or yajna, dana, and tapas. He truly attains that foremost supreme state. So, etat sarvam viditva, knowing all this, realizing this entire, the idea that yogi who dies during Uttarayana goes to the supreme domain, and the yogi who dies in Dakshinayana is born again, and yogi is not deluded knowing these two paths. So, etat sarvam viditva, having learned all these things, Vedeshu, Yajneshu, tapatsu daneshu. So from all the knowledge of the Vedas, from yajna, dana, and tapas, cha eva, indeed, and yat punya phalam pradishtam. What merit punya phalam, the merit of the final result and merit of the good the brownie points that are gained by all this study. Yogi tat atyeti. So a yogi goes beyond that. He transcends all these benefits. Paramadhyam sthanam upaiti. He attains the foremost supreme state. Param adhyam, supreme foremost sthanam, position or state, he attains. Now we know that the yajna, so Veda, basically the merit of studying Veda is one thing. So the deep study of the Vedas and Upanishads and so on, that is one idea. Then it says yajna dana tapas. Now this is an idea I don't know whether I have discussed in some detail before. I'll just give you a little bit of overview about this. When we say that one has to adhere to dharma, what does it mean when we say we have to adhere to dharma? What is the methodology? What is the pedagogy for the adherence to dharma? That pedagogy is explained in the three ideas of yajna, dana, and tapas. Now, yajna literally means the Vedic fire ritual, which I told you that there are three altars, one which will be in a square shape, and one will be in a circle, one will be a semicircle, and there are different Ritviks who are having their officiators of this ritual. Then there'll be so many things in a yajna, with dance and music and storytelling, nice food, community participation, and ritualistic elements. So it's a celebration of with the community. Although one person is the Yajamana, and the Patni, the husband and wife, conduct the yajna. They are the people who are doing the yajna with the help of the Ritviks, who are the officiators. It is a community activity. A lot of people come together. There is worship of the divine. There is interaction between people. There's sharing. So there are so many things in a literal Vedic yajna. But in a broader sense, in a metaphorical sense, it refers to doing our work as worship. So doing work in a very dedicated manner, working with the feeling of that celebration, with the feeling of that immersion, devotion, and all these things. Dana is kind of philanthropy or charity that is undertaken with a feeling that it is my duty to share with the people. And later we will see in the Bhagavad Gita also, there are different types of dana. The right kind of dana is which is done to a deserving person at a deserving time, offering it to somebody who cannot offer a favor back in return, which is not a transaction. It is an offering, and it is done with a feeling that I have received so much, I should share with other people, and so on. So this is dana. Tapas refers to austerity, focus, hard work, single-minded focus, and basically concentrated efforts. Any work done with focus, sincerity, and there is a certain element of austerity that comes into it, because when you're seriously involved in activity, then you keep away everything, all your other parameters. You may be rich or poor, you may be old or young, you may be man or woman. All these things are kept aside. There is complete immersion in that activity. You don't think about anything else. So that is sort of tapas. There is one, I remember one of my very favorite scenes from Iron Man. I think it's the second Iron Man, where he tries to create a new element that will suffice for, that will replace this palladium thing which is keeping him alive. So then he goes to this underground chamber, and he's like hardware mode, and he starts working. And see, he's a millionaire, whatever, he's got all the money and everything. But at that point of time, all that matters is getting this experiment right and functioning and so on. So there is this tapas involves cutting out the outside world and absolute focus on the activity at hand. So Tapas is required for that intensity and focus. Yajna is required for working without attachment and a community activity, sharing and so on. Only when we do tapas and we gain something, then we can do dana. So dana is the element of sharing, tapas the element of working. Yajna has got both these things together, working and sharing. So much more than the result of all these things, when one has the highest understanding, he goes beyond the realization of these other things. Because what is the objective of doing all these things? These are all stepping stones to ultimately understand the highest state, which is the Supreme Brahman. So once a person has got that highest understanding, who realizes this, goes above all these other the results and the punya phala of these things. So I hope this is clear. There was one question in the chat. From Arjunji? Does this even apply to non-Brahma yogi like us? Is that death Uttarayana considered more good, although it's not in our control? No, because he has Krishna clearly says in the 24th shloka that tatra prayataha brahmavidaha janaha brahma gachanti, right? So therefore the brahmavidaha janaha, so the ones who know Brahman, when they die in Uttarayana, they attain the highest. Since we have not attained Brahman, we don't probably have to worry about it. It doesn't matter. The higher probability is that we will be reborn. But in any case, I think what is important is the notion that there are these two paths, and even a yogi has to be detached. One should not get a feeling, oh, I have done all these punya karyas, I'm awesome, I'm going to go out of this cycle of birth and death. So that is indicative of certain arrogance and ahankara. You will be reborn. So one requires to transcend all these things, go beyond, like how we have that state of deep sleep, complete immersion in the universe, where from our point of view in deep sleep, we are one with the universe. There is no distinction there. We don't have any ego. We don't have any such thing when we are in that state of deep sleep. Even in a dream state, we have some ego. Wakeful state, of course, we have. But in the deep sleep state, complete immersion with everything. We also realize that during the wakeful stage, there are some flashes, some small periods of time where we escape into this space of no ego, no awareness of oneself, no arrogance, nothing. When we are enjoying rasa, when we are enjoying a great music or a dance performance or watching a movie or reading a novel or immersed in some work that is enriching to us, we forget space and time. We become one with that activity. Only when we reach that state, we are able to sustain that state, then we are able to, will attain the higher realm. So therefore, one need not worry. So if one of our ancestors died in Dakshinayana, we need not feel bad. I still remember long back, there used to be a maid who worked in our house when I was growing up, and her husband was a drunkard, and he had all the worst habits you can think of, totally dependent on his wife, never bothered to lift a little finger to do anything, and the worst kind of guy. And he died on Vaikunta Ekadashi. So from then on, I lost all the hope that that doesn't mean anything. So what the quality of life somebody leads here on earth, how you are able to work, that's very important. So if ever you think that, oh my God, my grandfather, grandmother, somebody they died on during Dakshinayana, you can remember this story. This total useless guy died on Vaikunta Ekadashi. I'm pretty sure he's not in Swarga right now. He must be still serving his sentence in Naraka, and then he will probably be reborn. But in any case, it's whenever we are dealing with metaphorical things, it's important to learn from the metaphor, enjoy the metaphor, and not take it too seriously. The problem is when we take a metaphor too seriously, then we lose the spirit of it, right? When somebody is, even in a day-to-day conversation, when somebody is giving an explanation for something by using a hyperbole or some sort of exaggeration, If we take that literally, if we take the example literally, then we will miss the point. So it's important to realize that these are all metaphorical. And like I said, this is a conversation between two people. So many things come in. We had to have that viveka to pick and choose what is really meaningful for us. There is definitely something in it for everybody, but not everything in it is for everybody. So this is a general rule of thumb that is useful to keep whenever you're studying Gita. Not everything will appeal to you, but something will definitely appeal to you. So with this, we come to the end of the 8th chapter. So tomorrow we'll do a quick run up of the 8th chapter. Not much will be there, but then we'll go to the 9th chapter. So good. Thank you so much, and we'll meet you tomorrow again. Om Tat Sat.